Good morning. Okay. Thank you for having us. Good morning. My name's Tom Mills. I help out with the Earth Keepers on their board, essentially with the train station property. I don't have a lot of other involvement with them on a day-to-day basis. We have a long history with the property, obviously. And I don't intend to go through it all, although we can certainly be open to questions if any arise. We had a lease with the municipality, which was to expire in 2020. And we have a subtenant, which is the daycare, Elmwood Daycare. Their lease went, hand in hand, basically. It was to expire in 2020. In 2018, the municipality commenced some proceedings which ended up with the Earth Keepers transferring the land lease that the train station is on from the Earth Keepers back to the municipality. And at that time, the municipality gave us a 2-year extension on our lease. However, the Elmwood Daycare still had an existing lease that wasn't going to end until 2020. Ours was going to 2022. At the termination of their lease, COVID had struck. They were not in business at that time. Nobody was. It was lockdown period. Anyway, the way things went, I agreed with Florence that, we didn't know what was going to happen in September. Would there be school? Would the daycare be allowed to open again? She gave us post-dated checks all the time. We already had them. We just went with the verbal agreement to hold over until such time as we knew what was going to happen. Well, COVID took a while going away. We continued with that verbal agreement. She continues to this day to give us post-dated checks. And it's basically trust. They've been a tenant for a long time. They've put a lot of money into the preparation of that space for infants, the sprinkler system, etc. We didn't feel there was a great deal of risk. And even if there was some with the new federal daycare policy, the one thing we knew was the demand wasn't going to shrink. You've got a new exit going into Lance. I mean, look at the numbers of people that are coming. Even if Elmwood Daycare was to have been taken over because of the transfers, we felt fairly confident that we would be able to lease, without question, that space. So therefore, that first question I saw in the email was one of risk, and we don't have any, in our opinion. As it turns out, you've seen a letter which was sent from Florence, which basically states a lot of the questions around the changing legislation and the outlook for daycares have been answered. She feels quite confident that she will be staying. She is quite ready to enter into a new lease. Now, that addresses sort of the first concern that I saw in the email that we had. The second concern was one of activities. I don't know that, certainly no other nonprofit that I've been involved with, or any charity that I am involved with, is required to do that to anybody. Really. Financial records, no problem. But actual activity reports. But we did provide an activity report in 2018. And I've got, really don't have the time to ask people to provide another one. So what we have done instead is simply ask Riley She would come. Riley has been with the Earth Keepers for half a dozen years. She's a supervisor last year. She's now organizing our offices and things like that, has been through the winter on some of her own time. And she can speak more to the activities of the Earth Keepers and things of that nature. So I'm going to let her go next. Thank you.
So like Tom mentioned, my name's Riley. I'm 19 years old. I grew up in Enfield. I started at the Earth Keepers when I was 13 years old. So we're going around like 5-6 years of me being involved with the Earth Keepers. I worked my way through the whole program as we are meant to, as we're designed to, from a youth all the way up. And it provided me with a lot of different strengths that I don't think I would have been given otherwise. The first years I worked at the Earth Keepers, I was really young. I was just there to kind of make friends and learn and kind of participate in something community level. But as I got older, I was more drawn to the bigger aspects it provides and the community involvement. So it kind of provided me with a way to get involved in different groups in the community by providing opportunities for that, which I thought was very important because I think it's important to get to know people in the community and make connections. So we do a lot of volunteer activity with the Earth Keepers that I think everyone has known over the years. And one of those things was the Legion dinners we would do. And through the Legion dinners, I kind of stranded off and joined cadets as well and got involved with that organization, which provided me with a lot of strengths as well. But once I became supervisor a couple years ago, will be my third year being a supervisor once we hit summer, that kind of made me fall in love with the program. Every year when I was in high school, I would work different minimum wage jobs throughout the winter, but I would find myself going back to Earth Keepers in the summer. I kind of fell in love with it mainly because I watched how the kids would grow. So they would come in, maybe they were shy, maybe they were having trouble with different things. And by the time they would leave, they would be a completely different person and smiling and happy. And I think it's really just important for them to have an opportunity to grow in a safe environment. At that young of an age, you don't really have a lot of options for different jobs. So it's important that we provide them with a opportunity to learn safety, first aid, communication, and a million skills that they would not be given otherwise. It gives them an entry level to the workforce. So for me, when I first joined, I was given the opportunity to meet with different people, and it gives you an opportunity to find different jobs that you might be interested in. So for the kids, we'll ask them what they're interested in, like if they have any ideas what they want to do when they grow up, and they'll tell us, and then we'll arrange for like different ways for them to try it out. So last year we went to the airport and did a tour of the airport, and kind of they got to learn about different job opportunities there. And it also, I find it keeps the kids out of trouble. So I find most of them don't want to do, not bad, but like irresponsible activities. They just are bored. So this gives them a positive way to spend their time and a positive way to get rewarded. And I think that's really important as well. Community-wise, we're really important because we do a lot of volunteer activity, like I mentioned before, whether that be Bitter for Litter, Legion Dinners, Canada Day, Open East Hands, and we will pick someone in the community, usually every year, and if it's usually someone who's either sick or elderly and can't do their own property, and will do their property for free, which kind of shows the kids how important it is to give back to someone in the community and how grateful they are that we're there for them. And going along with that, nowadays with COVID and technology, it kind of gives the kids a way to interact without that, because I find a lot of them are addicted to technology nowadays, and it helps them have an output that's going to be more physical and rewarding. And it also gives them the opportunity to interact with people they usually wouldn't. So it kind of mixes generations, because again, with COVID and technology, you're not really going out into the community and just talking to people like it used to be. So it gives them the opportunity to talk to people much older than them and doing much different things than them, and they kind of get guided and taught lessons through that. As well as that, we are supported by many businesses in the community and members of the community. Everyone that I have talked to has given me positive feedback throughout my time at the Earth Keepers. And overall, I believe that if it wasn't for the Earth Keepers, I would not be where I am today. It shaped me and provided me with many opportunities to learn, grow, and question things in a safe environment. It led me to discover my passion for environment and hands-on working, which pushed me to study environmental engineering technology. It taught me leadership, teamwork, and provides kids with so many great opportunities they would not be given otherwise. Without our building, the Earth Keepers would not be able to provide the opportunities it does, and the central location allows us to communicate with the youth and the community on an accessible way to have everyone meet. It's very important that we continue in the community, not just for the youth, but everyone as a whole.
This is not a question. First of all, I kind of like to address, Mr. Mills's comment that he doesn't know why we would want an activity report. Well, we want an activity report. We're put here to look after the taxpayers' money, and if we don't do that, we're not fulfilling our job. So that's why we've asked for an activity report. I've been here for a number of years, and I think when the Earth Keepers have started, it was presented to council that they would go out and help the elderly mow lawns, paint fences, and so on and so forth. I like the fact that, I can hear what Riley's saying with character building and things like that. But the activity report is just as important as a character building, because there's a lot of elderly people out there who are on fixed incomes and things like that who could use this service. And that's the kind of report that, what are you guys doing out there to measure up to that? So really, I can understand. I'm for the youth. I think it's great, your character building, but they're also equally important is what your service is to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rhino.
Yeah, on that point, the Earth Keepers have evolved. Yes, Councillor Rhino, that was the objective of the Earth Keepers, not quite 20 years ago, but anyway, in the inception of the Earth Keepers. However, it comes right down to dollars and cents. We're able to get grants to cover about 60% of the salary of a coordinator and 2 supervisors, but we have to apply for them annually. We haven't even gotten them yet for this year. We can't afford, how are we going to raise the money without charging people to mow the lawns? We can only do so much for volunteering. We cannot do the entire population. We pick and we choose, but we have to. It's the only way financially it can happen. We haven't gotten any financial support from the municipality other than with the restoration of the building. And even at that, it was not a significant amount of the total. The restoration of the building was done on the understanding that we would own the building. We have it in writing. The municipality reneged on that. We knew, I shouldn't say we, the people at the time, Frank Horn, Bob Mona, and Suzanne and others, knew that they needed financial stability. The municipality wanted somebody to take over that building. I mean, I was there weekly when it was a library. I saw the decline of the building. I saw the way it was saved. So the activity report, well, I don't know. Do you get one from the Historical Society that runs the H. Horn School? Do you get one from the other property down here, the old Elmsdale School?
We get activity reports from all
nonprofits.
nonprofits.
If you do, I've got no problem as long as it's consistent. If it's what you expect from others, we will provide it.
Yeah, And we do get them from the E.H. Horn School, we do get them from the other organizations. And the activity report is not something that is meant to be onerous. It's just something to show a snapshot of what's going on. So it also, the activity report can also be a link to funding. The more activity that you do and the more funding you request, you can get. When you don't know what's going on, you need to justify funding. And the activity report's a great way to actually possibly increase funding to organizations based upon need and work that's being done.
I appreciate that, and like I say, if you get it from others, you will get it from us.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. I don't intend to be antagonistic.
Oh,
here.
no, not
And in
taking it that
fact,
way.
the one thing I would like to see, and I've put it in writing to council in the past, never had a reply. I would think that there must be somebody on your staff within Parks or Recreation or something that has to do with the youth. And I would love to see a member of your staff on our board of directors so that you can have a direct link. I can't see any reason why you shouldn't.
That is something that we can bring into Parks and Rec and have a discussion under the Parks and Rec meeting about that.
Yeah, you'd be most welcome, really. I have no reason to be antagonistic here. I mean, the Earth Keepers have done a lot to save that property. We want to make sure that the property continues its use. We're only a seasonal tenant.
And I don't know if you see up at the top that there was a motion made in council, and we have moved that we're going to extend the lease, but we wanted to hear from you guys first in case if anything else that was not going to be done. So the lease is going to be extended. We're just giving you the opportunity to speak and let us know what's going on, which gives us a better picture of the options for the lease and renewing going forward. So we weren't going to, the lease was not going to be canceled. I want to make that clear.
I appreciate that, but I was totally unaware of that.
Okay. Sorry about that, but that was that's what the meeting's for. It's for us to learn about what's going on. We welcome you to, thank you for coming. And it was for you to let us know the activities that are going on. Mm-hmm. So, we're looking at extending the lease to right now, 2025.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Hold, just 1 second here. I got to juggle the mics. We had a few people on to speak first, and then I'll come to you. First up was the warden.
Yes, just to echo what others have said, we're certainly aware that the Earth Keepers are out there and trying to do good things. But as Councillor Rhino said, and I don't want to be antagonistic either, but we were certainly, when the original arrangement was made with the Earth Keepers, there were a number of things that were going to take place that for whatever reason didn't evolve. Like a youth center, I believe, was one of them, if I remember correctly, and some different things. And we are responsible for managing taxpayer dollars and municipal properties and that. And that's why we want an activity report, and that's why it's good to keep in touch and understand what has changed for the Earth Keepers and how that would impact council and what council would see. So just wanted to make those comments, and certainly thank you for coming forward and giving us the presentation today, because we felt it was important to hear from you folks. And when, the request is made for an activity report, it's simply because due diligence. We have certain expectations based on what Earth Keepers have provided us in the past, and we just want to keep up with the flow and make sure that your vision has not changed so drastically that it's entirely different from our vision now. And so I do think it's important, and I do appreciate you folks coming out and giving us a report today. Thank you.
All right. Next up is Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Riley, that was a great presentation, by the way, and I think that's indicative of probably how Earth Keepers has has helped you evolve. My daughter came up through Earthkeepers very much the same way as you have, and it was definitely a great building block for her as she moved on into her current career. And I will say that the activity report will probably work in your favor as we move forward, which we totally intend to do with our coming years with Earthkeepers. So thank you.
All right. And Councillor Rhino?
Yes, respectfully correcting the chair, and I don't want to lead these people on. So there's a motion to extend the lease. That motion was tabled. It has to be moved, it has to be lifted from the table and has to be voted on. This is a democratic process, so it will depend on the vote.
Yes.
It's not a given, so I just wanted to correct the chair, respectfully correct the chair on that. It's not a given. So, thank you.
Last up, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, is there an opt-out clause in the new lease agreement? And who has control of the option, the additional 2 years? Is that a municipal option or is that a Earthkeeper option, automatic?
Go ahead, or Adam?
Doesn't
Sorry,
matter.
Adam.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor's question. There is a termination clause that's mutually beneficial within the lease. I can't recall right off the top of the head whether it's 90 days or so forth, but it's a two-way. And then for the renewal period, as the tabled motion stands, it would be pending appropriate reporting, good standing with joint stocks, and the typical conditions that we have part of our land management and lease management agreements. Then the renewal would be renewed. However, if there's some discrepancies or something we would need to bring to council's attention, we would pause at that 3-year time, come back and have that conversation with council.
Just to follow up, so when the renewal came in 2025, if the municipality had other uses for that property, that could be put into effect?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So council is working on their, what we're calling the Main Street Revitalization plan right now. That's in front of council and will be coming back for future consideration. That is a long-term vision of the Elmsdale kind of corridor of the number 214. So as this site evolves within Elmsdale, this site may be more of an interest for municipal ownership or may play more of a key role in what the entryway to the 214 may look like long-term for the community. So to answer your question more specifically, in 2025, when this lease renewal is up, we will be having that conversation with council and understand where council's vision is at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, that's all.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. All right. We'll go back to Earthkeepers because everybody else was on, and then afterwards we'll come back to councillors. Go ahead. Thank you.
I'm Suzanne Bona. It's a pleasure to be here, and we certainly can provide you an activity report, not knowing that it was part of the ongoing requirements for the municipality. A couple of things I'd like to address. We have, even last year, reached out to East Hants Youth Links to try to see if they could or wanted to use the building in part or in whole. Because of COVID, obviously, there's been ongoing concerns with space and people being able to gather, and our space upstairs is not that great. And so we've even monitored how many youth come in at any one time with supervisors, and we've had to do that, obviously, for ongoing public health concerns. And we also last year called the municipality. Now, I wasn't personally involved in this, but the coordinator at the time did, to offer to clean up any parks or recreation areas. And we were told that you guys actually look after that, which I know taxpayers' dollars we do, but We have tried and would be open to seeing if there's any ways that the Earth Keepers can also do things within the municipality. We did pick some parks. We picked the Milford Rec Center area. We did Bitter for Litter along the road fronts last year. And all to say that I think the communication piece between us and the municipality, or needs that may be there, or if there were seniors that are being, we do get approached for people that have cancer treatments and can no longer do their properties, or for people who are ill or infirm and can't get out. We already do get calls for that, and we work that into our volunteer groups. But if there are ones that councillors know of that we could try to help, we would certainly try to do our best there. So if there could be some increased communication amongst us, I think we would probably be able to help out. The other thing is if there could be participation from staff or summer coordinator or such that works with the municipality for youth activities, we are always finding ways to try to create youth activities amongst the work. So it's not just all work, work, work. It's about getting them to view properties, whether it could be a farm, whether it could be the airport came to the attention, and we asked the youth out of a series of 3 things they wanted to see. I have to say one of the things we did ask them is, did they want to come here? That didn't get top votes. I'm not sure why, but exactly. But they did vote to go to the airport. So we went to the airport and they got to see, and they learned about what jobs were there, that they could be hired as youth. So I think if nothing else, this could be a really great restart for all of us to have a better communication point. And our number is always live. Our emails are always monitored during the winter as well. So if there's other projects that we could work on and try to get staffing for, and again, if there's little side projects that you guys have for gardening or for cleanup or whatever, we would be happy to look at those. I appreciate that the building is a municipal building, but I do want to speak to the fact that when we took over that building, and unfortunately, some of the actual records, but I would swear on a stack of Bibles, that when we took over that building, some of the records aren't available to actually show you this, but because of unforeseen circumstances, we put in excess of $200,000 into that property by replacing the roof, securing floors, residing it, resurfacing brick, increasing all of the mechanical parts of the building. And this was done between 2008, 2009, under the understanding that we would get to be there. Now, I understand that there is a Main Street revitalization project that's underway. I would say we haven't been approached on that. And as being this person that reports to council on our activities, likewise, it would have been good to been invited to have some sort of contribution to this Main Street revitalization for obviously what may now look like an attractive building for the municipality. Certainly had blood, sweat, tears, and a fair chunk of money put into through various community businesses as well as individuals raising money to improve that it could be there today. So, you know, we're there to work within the community and also to work within the municipality. Call us foolish. But in 2008 and 2009, when this building was there and we saw it as an opportunity, I guess we trusted that we would get the opportunity to work within that building. And obviously, part of our plan was to be able to rent a portion of it so that we could help sustain the the operations and see it as a win-win. So, yeah, I guess from being there from the onset, perhaps we could continue to have dialogue in terms of the Main Street matters. And understandably, we have been here all along to work with the municipality and tax dollars. And certainly there was a lot of support for us in the beginning. We also made our way as well by spending those kind of dollars on that building to have it where it is today. Now, it doesn't mean that there is an ongoing need, as there is with any, and I'm sure that's where taxpayer dollars comes in for all of your properties. But I guess I would like that to be recorded and mentioned and noted. We did a lot, and we want to still continue to do a lot, both within the community and for the youth and the citizens. So we already have started our new roster for this year, interviewing the youth. Sometimes it's their first interview, being able to call our customers from last year, having new ones call us. So we're already ramping up for our season as we do. And we do it that way because we work with the youth around their school schedules and with the light that we have in the day to work with. So thank you for your time.
No,
And
thank you.
look forward to increased communication.
Thank you. And that Main Street, it's in its infancy right now. Like, it's still, like, there's nothing definite. It's just, things are being explored. If I could be, I'll let Adam talk a little bit more. It's, there's nothing being done tomorrow. Go ahead, Adam. Oops.
Well, I guess if I may say, sorry, Adam.
Yeah.
What's been alluded to me is that building's sitting there and that it's a vibrant part of the community. And I'm thinking to myself, yes, it is, because we also help to have it still be standing there. And we aren't saying that we're not open. We're just saying, can we be part of it?
Yeah.
So go ahead, Adam.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to provide some clarity, the Main Street concept really is along the 214, and all it's done to this date is just identify some long-term key focal areas. Council hasn't discussed by any means what that may look like down the road, but just areas to consider as this vision evolves over the next number of years. So by all means, I'd be happy to have an additional conversation with you offline to kind of give you some more context and some of the engagement that we've gone through to date and where it may go. But it's just really just to speak to that corner could be, as the community evolves, a point to reconsider, and what that partnership may or may not look like down the road. It's just a conversation that would evolve over time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adam. First up to speak is Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Tom, for coming, and bigger thank you for bringing Riley with you. For me, living 40 minutes away from here, I had no idea what's going on with you guys. And after I heard what she said, I always thought like kids come for summer for a couple of weeks, then go, but for someone to come from 13 to 19 and found her passion for the environment and stuff, it's very touching, and you got my full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Musa. Next up, Warden Roles.
Thank you. And just another question occurred to me as part of the activity report. So I'm just wondering if it's able to have been, originally, I believe there was to be 1 hour of volunteer work for every 4 hours of paid labor for the students or the youth. And I'm just wondering, is that still the ratio? Has that had to change? I think that's part of what we would be looking for in a report is how many volunteer hours were leveraged in the community for these young people.
So it's still every 4 hours they work, they do 1 hour of volunteer. So that can be a number of different things. We kind of organize that based off the payroll. So like when they do their 4 hours, it's not after every single shift they'll do an hour, but it'll kind of like bank up, and then we'll do a day of volunteer activity. And maybe that's a rain day that we had scheduled jobs. So we're gonna go do Bitter for Litter, or maybe that's someone who approached us. Like we said, we don't have a lot of elderly people anymore reaching out to us, but we still do have some. So we'll go and do their yards for the day, or we'll go and organize something else for the kids to do that'll be volunteer work. But it still is required for every 4 hours of work they do. They put one back into the community.
Thank you.
Is that it, Warden?
Yep.
Okay. Next up, Councillor Rhino.
Well, after hearing Ms. Bona speak, that is why we asked for an activity report, because the activity report is tied to the lease of the building. And if we don't get that, we're not just going to give a group a building to run for the sake of giving them a building to run. We want to see that is, their work is helping out the community in some forms. I hear it's helping out the youth, but it also has to help out the community. And this is why that activity report is so important. Because that's how I'm gonna support or not support this motion. If I see that activity report, and I can see that it aligns with the purpose of the group, then I have no problem. And I say, like, a lot of seniors and fixed income people, it's gonna get worse with the price of gasoline and the price of cost of living just rising. So the more we can help them, the better. I understand you can't do it, for nothing. I understand that. But when the group was originally formed, it was my belief that you were at a very, really cheap rate or a reduced rate that could be affordable out there for people who couldn't afford this service. So that's what I'm basing my thought on, is that activity report is so important. Thank you.
Answer. So to that particular question, we are constantly looking at what other people charge to try to be certainly below that, as well as when we're approached by people, if, say, for instance, their lawn's going to take 2 hours, we try to only charge them for an hour. And we talk that over with the clients so they know what we're doing. But yeah, I mean, we still need to put gas in the mowers, we still need to put gas in the truck, we still need to pay people that are the students and the supervisors, so, yeah.
But like I said, it's the activity report that reflects this, what you do out there. That comes back, that can be tied to leases, that can be tied to future funding, if any. So that's why it's so important.
Is that all, Councillor Rhino?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no other councillors on to talk, I just ask if you guys have anything you guys want to say at the end. And
No, I guess other than thank you for listening, and we certainly do hope that the communications improve, and we look forward to another lease and continuing into the future. Thank you.
thank you so much. I'd like to thank you on behalf of council for coming today and your presentation. Thank you. I would deal with that motion and policy. We discuss right now. Yeah, because there was other move up there. It says, they table the motion until the committee until the keepers give a presentation. So presentation is made, so now it's the question. All right, committee. We've now had the presentation from Earth Keepers, and under the motion CRS 2218, the move that Corporate Residential Services tabled the motion for CRS 2117 for the lease until they hear the presentation from Enfield Earth Keepers. Table motion is before you. We've had the presentation from Earth Keepers, and what is your wishes? First up to speak, Councillor Green.
I'll move to lift the tabled motion.
Motion to lift the table motion, seconded by the Deputy Warden. Councillor Rhino, you were on before. Oh, Councillor Rhino was on before the motion?
For me, I would require, for me to make a decision, I want a reactivity report placed. For that's how I'll be directed, right? Before me.
Okay.
Premature till we get a full activity report to lift this motion from the table, but that I have to defer to council.
Thank you, Councillor Rhino. Okay, we've had a motion. It's been seconded.
Question on the motion.
Question's been called on the motion. We'll go to the vote. And the votes are in, and it's passed with Councillor Rhino voting nay. Okay. Lost the diagram there. Here we go. Councillor Hebb.
Now that the motion is untabled, I will move the motion as presented.
It's already on the floor. It's already on the floor.
What's that?
The motion has been lifted from the table, so it's already on the floor. We don't need to move it again.
Okay, my apology. I thought we had to table it and then we had to vote on it again.
We have to discuss and vote, but we don't have to make it.
Okay, thank you.
Question on the motion.
You want to speak, Warden?
Yeah, just briefly.
Go ahead.
Yeah, with regards to Councillor Rhino's concerns, and I think we've, through our conversation, gotten a little better understanding of the activity report and the desire to have it. And I just wanted to note in the motion, there is a requirement for annual reporting. And what generally happens, and I just, you know, it would be great if it could happen in this case too, for ease for council, is we receive a written report on this prior to, you know, so that's kind of what we'd be looking for, and then that way councilors have an opportunity as they review all their correspondence before meetings to say, oh, great, the Earth Keepers report's in, they've done this, 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 and this, you know, and we're familiar and we understand your operations a little better. So I just wanted to make reference to that, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Yes, and I believe in the conversation and the presentation today, Earth Keepers are well and open to commencing and going on with that reporting. So, question's been called. We'll go to the vote. The motion is passed. Councillor Rhino voting nay. Next item, we have the discussion of council and public member mandatory proof of vaccination policy, CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a discussion today, there's no formal report on the agenda. Council had passed a mandatory vaccination policy for councillors and members of your council committees. Since that time, we've moved through various stages of the pandemic and the public health response to the pandemic. As you all know, we've gone into a new phase as of yesterday. And as a result, several of the municipalities who had passed similar policies have rescinded their policies. The town of Bridgewater, their policy was set to go into effect April 7th and has been rescinded, so it will not go into effect. HRM, Cumberland, Amherst, CBRM, and Truro have all rescinded their policies, and their unvaccinated staff who were included in their policies have returned to work. So looking for some direction for council today. Do you want to keep your policy in place, Or would you like to make a motion to rescind the policy and have that go through council next week?
First up to speak, the warden.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick question. Not knowing where COVID is going, is there any option, instead of fully rescinding the policy, to, I don't know, putting it aside for a time, or is our choice simply to rescind and then start over again if something else happens?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think if you're inclined, it would be to rescind the policy now, and then should something happen, you could very quickly reinstate a similar policy. At the time, you may have different factors that you would want included in a new policy. I guess as a pandemic evolves, we really don't know. But it's fairly generically written that you could probably just reinstate it at a later date, but you wouldn't have it as an active policy on your books.
Well, hearing that, I would move to rescind the policy.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. The votes are in. The motion is passed unanimously.
Mr. Chair, are these speakers or microphones working?
They are, but they're very low.
I'm gonna say, it's almost like if I can hear the
Really?
people, but I can't hear the microphone.
One other thing I have to say, one other thing I must say is I asked the counselors wait for their mic to light up because it is kind of lagging going through, but definitely. All right. Next, we will have an update to the streetlight policy. Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. Nsfm Spring Conference Delegation.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities is planning to host their spring conference at White Point Beach Resort on May 5th and 6th. We do have a $4,000 budget for the warden, the CAO, plus 3 other members of council to go to that. So we're looking today for interest in those who want to attend. And again, as with the FCM discussion that we had, we do have some money in reserve for council, FCM and Nsfm workshops and conferences. So if the numbers are more than 3, we could certainly accommodate that from your reserves. And I would say that in my case, I won't be available to go May 5th and 6th for personal reasons. So I would recommend that the CAO be replaced with the assistant clerk, municipal clerk, which is Shirley.
Go ahead, Warden.
Yes, I'm trying to remember if I responded to an email or not, but I am available to attend on those dates, and I would certainly support Shirley as suggested by the CAO.
Okay, so be looking. Any other counselors have interest in attending the NSFM conference? Councillor Eisner?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Councillor Knockwood has declined to go. He has work commitments.
Yes, sorry, and I should have mentioned, we have regrets from Councillor Knockwood. He will not be able to attend executive committee today. So looking at council, I guess it's going to be the warden, Councillor Eisner, and the Shirley. Is there any further discussion on that? Go ahead, Warden.
Just wondering when the registration is due, on the off chance that anyone else might find themselves free to go, but might not know work-wise if they can. Okay, so there hasn't been a deadline given yet, so, okay.
All right. Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, just to speak to that, while I find that I'm not able to attend the national conference just due to work commitments, this is one that I may be able to manage, but couldn't say at this time.
This time. Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Warden.
So perhaps we have the names of those who are committing at this time, and we could take into, that Councillor Garden Cole might be interested depending on work commitments. And I'm wondering, perhaps when Shirley gets the registration deadline or whatever, perhaps she could reach out to Councillor Garden Cole at that time, and to any other councillors to see if any other councillors have an interest in going to that conference just prior to the deadline. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you, Warden. Took the words right out of my mouth. So, what is the will of committee? We have 3 confirmed and 1 possible. We'll just need a motion. Go ahead, Warden.
I would move that myself, the warden, Councillor Eisner, and the deputy clerk, I believe it is Shirley Mitchell McEwen, attend the Nsfm conference in May, and that any other councillors who would be interested in doing so, Shirley would confirm those prior to the deadline date, and that she would check with Councillor Garden Cole as well at that time to confirm.
We have motion.
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Now, go ahead, Warden.
Before we leave the NSFM discussion, there was another item that has floated around concerning FCM for a number of times. I was going to move to add it to the agenda today, and then it was suggested we could just discuss it at the same time as we discussed NSFM. And the request is out for nominations to the FCM Board of Directors. Now, Colchester's had a couple of delegates on there for a bit now, and we have talked in the past, somewhat informally, about whether or not there could be some benefit for East Hants to have a member on the FCM board. We've never done that before, but FCM does a lot of great work, particularly around what used to be called the gas tax and many other things. And over the years, I've attended a number of different conferences, and I think that we won't really know until we try, but I do think there would be value in East Hants. No guarantee we'll get it, but I think there would be value in East Hants applying for a board membership on FCM. It would certainly give us, for lack of a better word, an inside track on what the thoughts are and what's happening there. And I'm going to go a step further, and this was something that the previous warden had mentioned a number of times too. Having been to many of these conferences and observed firsthand the remarkable networking skills that one of our own councillors has here with many members of FCM on those conferences, I think we could be well served if Deputy Warden Mitchell were interested in doing that. I know that it does require some commitment to travel and some time commitment. There is cost to the municipality to cover travel and that, and the latest estimate that we were able to get would be around $7,500 for the year. And I just really do feel that there could be some value to not only knowing what FCM is involved in firsthand which they're very transparent, I know, but to be there at the ground level, and also to have the ability to perhaps influence some of the discussion at FCM, I believe would be very valuable at well. So I just wanted to put that out there for discussion. It is a relatively, $7,500 for what I believe we could gain. I believe Colchester have 2 people somehow involved at some level at present. And I just think it would be worthwhile to look at it. So I just wanted to put that out there for discussion. That's where my thoughts were going, that if, and I have mentioned it to the deputy warden, and he hasn't really, he hasn't told me you're crazy. I wouldn't do that in a million years. So I thought I'm going to throw that out there because I just think that in my experience, Deputy Warden is the very best goodwill ambassador and networking person that we could ever have at these conferences, and kudos to him for that. He knows people that I have no idea even who they are or where they're from. So I guess first, I'd just like to know if council would have an appetite to perhaps support our national organization, because we do have to have board members, and we do, need to have representation from around the country. And if council would have an appetite to look at that, and if so, if the deputy warden would perhaps consider taking on that role for a year. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. First up to speak, Councillor Ryan.
No, I think it's a great idea, but I think the warden is selling herself short. I think that, in my opinion, the best for East Hants would be the warden to sit on that. You're going to be at every FCM conference while you're in your reign. What better? Don't sell yourself short. I think that you would probably have the best avenue for East Hants to be noticed on the federal level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rhino. Councillor Hebb.
Thank you. Just a question. The membership, is that for 1 year and has to be reapplied every year, or is that for a couple of years, or?
That's a good question.
I think it's 2. I want to say it was 2, but I'm not sure.
Shirley, do you remember?
The term of the board is typically 1 year.
1 year, okay. Yeah. And
If at some point in time we were interested in becoming a table officer, that I think is different, because they move up through the ranks and that. But as a board member, I believe, as Shirley has said, that is 1 year. And you could certainly,
yeah. Just to follow up on Councillor Rhino's comments, I think it should be the warden or the deputy warden, either one. And the deputy warden is a 1 year term too. So, but where it's being renewed every year, that would certainly make the difference there. So, thank you.
You're still on there, Warden.
I certainly thank Councillor Rhino for his kind words, but I'm certainly, happy to attend the conferences, and I do it virtual or live or whatever, and try to represent East Hants. But representation on the board is a little bit different. I haven't really looked at it. I'm not sure that the involvement at the board level is my particular skill set, or it would require some other travel and some more commitments, which I probably could be in a position to make work. But most of the members on the board are not necessarily wardens or mayors, or many times the president of FCM is often a councillor, not a mayor, not a warden. And so I've been to several of these conferences, and I have spoken, on resolutions and that at these conferences and things like that, and I would certainly continue to be our voice in that matter. But to do the board membership duties and that, having observed our deputy warden in action at these conferences, I just think he is a natural for a position like that. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Warden. Oh, hold on 1 second there, Deputy Ward. I got to get you on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm flattered that the warden thinks highly of me in that regard. I'm not sure what the FCM year is, when it starts and when it finishes, and since we're already into part of 2022, I'm not sure what transpires in coordinating everything, but if it's year commitment and it can benefit the municipality, I'd be willing to put that year in on behalf of the residents and council. But
Thank you,
it's the time involved and how the time fits up with the year. Those are my concerns.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. And just to echo, I think whether you're the deputy warden and then it rolls over to be a councillor, you still would have served as deputy warden. You still have that voice and the experience and everything going forward. So I think that would be very good. Next up to speak, Warden Roles.
Now, I think as far as dates go, I think that the board members are elected at the conference, the annual conference, if I remember correctly. So I believe that the board membership would run from this year's annual conference to next year's annual conference, which would be June to June, if that's helpful at all. And I would, if we're going to do this, we would need a motion because they require a copy, and this would have to be done at the council level too. There has to be a written motion, a copy of a motion from council supporting it and agreeing to fund the travel and that for the board member for the term of the appointment. So we'd have to make a motion for that to happen as well. And so I guess maybe I will move that council submit Deputy Warden Mitchell's name for membership on the board of FCM, and that East Hants Municipal Council provide confirmation that we will support that nomination and appointment should it happen, and will fund the necessary travel and hotels for him to attend the necessary meetings, with an understanding that that the cost, well, this doesn't have to be in this motion, I guess. So, thank you.
Okay, you have a motion. Seconded by Councillor Tingley. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. Oh. Sorry, Deputy Warden, just,
So would this be a motion I vote on?
yeah.
Yes.
The votes are in and it's passed unanimously.
Now the lobbying begins.
All right. Now, for the third time, if I get this right, finally, an update on streetlight policy. Director of Finance, go ahead.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, through the chair. Good morning. There we go. So the report that I'm presenting this morning is in regards to the street lighting policy. The policy with the amendments was attached to the agenda, along with the report that's here this morning. The text, the actual context in the policy was not amended, only Schedule A and Schedule B. Schedule A is a map and Schedule B are the rates. For councillors' benefit, this policy has been in effect for over 10 years. We did a capital project that council approved back in 2011 to replace the LED streetlights. Replace the streetlights with LED lights. The municipality owns the lights and they repair and maintenance and replace them, as well as install new ones as required. So when that project was done, there was a 10-year contract for repair and maintenance and installation in place at that time. That contract has expired and there's 2 new contracts. There was a RFP that went out, or quotes, I guess, for this contract, and it's been awarded. And with that, there are new prices that are in the Schedule B. So the actual financial component, this is budgeted. It was passed in the most recent budget for costs. Because of the change, there's really not a major impact to the budget for next year. There is some background there related to the project and how this came to be for councillors' benefit. And as I said, just Schedule A, which is a map, and the map has been updated because there's been new streetlights implemented since the last policy change in 2018. And then there's the Schedule B that has the costs for subdivider, developers, private road owners, that we would charge them if they want a streetlight installed. Once the streetlight is installed, then any operating costs are taken over by the municipality. So this here table reflects the new costs, and they are over a 3-year period. They actually run November to November, and they're by wattage. So the most common streetlight that's implemented or installed is the 40 to 55 watt. We've also included the other ones. They're on occasion installed. The 110 is for security purposes. It's much brighter. And there's also an additional charge for when we need a longer extension arm for the light. That's often used during intersections to make sure that it comes out further so that the lighting is beneficial there. So these costs are actually less. This contract was negotiated and the costs are actually less than what's currently in the council's policy. I do have the old costs here listed, so you can see for a 43 watt light, it was $11.27 that we charged for installation, and now in the first year it's $7.90, the second year $8.20 and $8.50. So it would be council's decision whether they want to reduce them or keep the current costs that are in place. That is actually one of the alternatives. So if I go up to the top, you'll see the motions in place. Move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that council give notice of intent to approve the changes to the street lighting council policy as attached to the Executive Committee agenda dated March 22nd, 2022. And also, because it's a policy, move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that council approve the changes to the street lighting council policy as attached to the Executive Committee agenda dated today, March 22nd, 2022. So I'd welcome any questions at this time.
Okay, first up to speak is Councillor Rhino. Once I can get
Through
this
you,
to turn on for you. There we go.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just.
There you go.
Did you hear that?
Sorry, no, I couldn't quite.
No, around emergency lighting, what wattage would be used at an emergency lighting? I'm just thinking that the higher wattage one would be better at an intersection, such as the one that I moved and council passed there for the 236, 215.
Correct. If it's for, I don't know that we call it emergency lighting, safety lighting. If I said emergency, I apologize. It's safety lighting. So the streetlights that are in subdivisions, every second pole, they're usually the 43 watt. But often if we install a streetlight at an intersection or a busy area, they are a higher wattage.
They are?
Yes.
Can you,
Yes.
at what wattage, do you know?
It's usually the 110. It's
110.
usually the
Great.
higher,
Great.
yes.
Thank you
There's
very
not
much.
that many of them that are installed, but that
No,
would be correct.
great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rhino. Next up, Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I don't know if I understood everything right, but now we're charging $11.27 per light?
Correct, that was based
And
on the
those
old
prices
contract.
are, that we were gonna charge if the motion passed, $7.90 and $8.20 and $8.50?
Correct, in the first year, and then, the first year would be $7.90 for the regular streetlights, and then it would be $8.20 in the second year, and then $8.50. But if the wattage is higher, there's a little bit of an additional charge.
Yeah, so if the motion didn't pass, we're gonna keep charging $11.27 and keep the difference in reserves, right?
Correct.
No, I'd rather do that, yeah, no. I don't think people should, they're already paying for the reserve, so I don't think we should charge more and put in reserve, so, thank you.
Okay.
Is that all, Councillor Musa?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, committee, you've heard the presentation from the finance director. What's your will? Councillor Hebb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move the motion presented as council meeting policy.
Moved by Councillor Hebb, seconded by Councillor Musa. Is there any discussion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. Votes are in. It's passed unanimously. Councillor Rhino.
Yes, through you, would it be permissible to ask who has the contract for installing those? Would that be Black and Mac or another outfit?
There's actually two contractors. One is LED, unfortunately, Jesse's not here, LED
LED roadway.
Roadway, and the other one is S&H. I'm not familiar with them. Yeah.
Thank you for that information.
All right. Thank you so much, Sue. All right, moving on, we're going to have new employee introductions. And who's going to take that one? Is it UCO? There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This month we have, we're not quite back into the swing of things with bringing everybody back into chambers. We do have 3 new employees to introduce to you today. One is Christina Patterson. She's not new to the municipality. She's been working with us for 6 years as an interpretive guide at our tourism sites. Christina is from the Walton area, and she has accepted a position as at the Waste Management Center as our new scale house operator. So, sorry, she's from Minusville. Minusville. We'll fix that. Anyway, Christina has joined us as a full-time scale house operator, and we're thrilled to have her as part of the INO team. The next one is Jo Swinimer. Some of you will remember Jo when she covered a maternity leave for us in the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department. That position, the Community Development Coordinator, is open again for filling. So Jo is back with us for another term position. She's also been instrumental in supporting us at the Waste Management Center for for the last probably 2 years and provided us with a great deal of support out there as well. So we are absolutely thrilled to have Joe back with us on a full-time temporary basis. The next one is the new business development officer. Thrilled to announce that Angela Cormier will be joining us. She has extensive experience in commercial leases, in commercial relationship building, and working with businesses across the Maritimes. So we're very excited to have her on our staff. She is going to be instrumental in moving our key strategies forward and developing the new strategy for the Economic and Business Development Department. So we welcome Angela. She started yesterday, so she probably wouldn't recognize any of us in the hallway yet, but she'll certainly be in front of council, I'm sure, over the next little while. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, next we have employee recognition. I believe this is going to you, Sue? Or
No, I'll
take them? Okay, go ahead, CEO.
So through employee recognition, we do have Jenna Robar. Jenna's at the back. We wanted to recognize Jenna for her 5 years of commitment to the municipality. Hard to believe. So as council knows, we have our formal recognition of employees on pause again. We used to bring everybody into the gallery. So I want to recognize Jenna today, and we'll be recognizing her as with our staff through our staff portal and online.
Go ahead, Warden. Go ahead, Warden.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo the CAO's words. Jenna has, for a lot of the time, I know her duties have changed, perhaps some recently, but she's been one of the faces of the municipality that the public have seen when they come in. I've always found her to be very knowledgeable, very helpful, very gracious. So certainly we were fortunate 5 years ago to hire Jenna, and hopefully she'll be here for a very long time to come. And I just wanted to add my best wishes and congratulations to the CAOs on behalf of council. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden.
The last one, Mr. Chairman, is employee position changes. So as you know, succession planning and employee development is very important to us here. Today, I'm very pleased to tell you and share with you that Matthew Brownlow has competed and been given the position of senior building official. He was previously a building official with us, so we're thrilled to have Matthew in that leadership role for that team. And the other exciting news, Aurora Duthright, who is currently on maternity leave, will be joining us this summer. She was previously our communications coordinator and has successfully applied and received the nod for the tourism and event supervisor. So she will be responsible for your tourism sites, your tourism strategy, and moving some of those key projects along. So we're thrilled. She's thrilled, and we're thrilled. I'm upset to be losing her in my CAO's office, but Alana assures me that she'll treat her well. Anyway, we're thrilled that Aurora has chosen to continue her career with us as the tourism and event supervisor.
Thank you, CAO. We have some councilors wishing to speak. First up, the turn's on. Councillor Rano.
First of all, congratulations to everyone on, you're moving around your recognition. But around the recognition, is there a plan to return to public recognition here in council chambers? Because I think that's very important in team building, and I think that's very important for council to see that. And I just wondering if there's a plan to return to that. I know we're fresh out of just kind of COVID restrictions, but if there's a plan, I'd like to.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important that we do the public recognition to the council. I think it's important for council to understand the value that they have in their staff and to sort of be reintroduced to some of those staff that you may not interact with on a monthly basis. We really haven't discussed what it looks like going forward. excuse me, I think now with your live streaming of your meetings, it would be simpler to have staff who, instead of filling the gallery with 40 staff members, we may suggest that those folks watch from their desk when those employee recognitions come forward. But certainly I'd like to get back to having that formal recognition with a small ceremony for staff, as well as recognizing them more on the internal side of the organization, making sure that they get that value from being recognized by their peers as well.
Personally, I'd like to see the staff in the gallery supporting their fellow worker in recognition. I think that goes a long way to team building, and for the sake of maybe 10 minutes out of their workday, I don't think it would be inappropriate to carry on that tradition.
Thank you, Councillor Rhino. Next up, Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wasn't here previously for that format, but I definitely do appreciate the staff coming in so that I can put a face to the name and appreciate the work that they've done and how long they've been here. I'd also like to commend the folks that have had a position and then moved up to a higher position. Obviously, we love to see that. People moving up through the ranks means something's going well, and the process is moving the way it should be, and that we're filling it in-house and then bringing someone, up from the lower position to fill their positions. So really great to see. Thank you.
Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's very cold in here. I don't know about the other side, so we find it very cold here.
I'm okay.
I don't know if it's working on this side, but
Well, there's no coming into this circle street.
We're going to be heading to break here very shortly.
yeah,
You can
that's
stretch
why
your legs and
that's
get a
why
warm
I asked
coffee.
now, because we found it very cold in here.
And we'll check the heat.
All right, thank you. All right, and as chair, I'd just like to echo, staff plays an invaluable role making all of our lives as councillors easy, and it's always great to have them recognized, and especially for longevity of service, as well as Councillor Garden Cole mentioned, those who accept new positions, and we have to say, they compete for those positions with people both in and outside of our organization. So we definitely have a very good group of staff, and I think they're second to none. So now we come to a break time. We need a break. So the time is now 10:27. Would you like to take a 10-minute break? Seems good. Okay, so we will take a 10-minute break, and we will re-adjourn at 10:37.
Like the people that, the presenters that were down there. Here with a mask on.
All right, councilors, take your seats.
Swing the gavel there, Mr. Chair.
I don't have it, just bang it. All right. Corporate Residential Service Committee is now back in order. We're going to move on with the South Rawdon Community Hall. And looks like Amy's turned into Adam. Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, filling in for Amy today, who put together the report for council in front of you. So as council recalls, your January regular meeting, there was correspondence received regarding the South Rawdon Community Hall, and it was from the Community Hall Association. And they were requesting council to turn over operations of the facility back to the municipality. The municipality does own the facility. It's an old schoolhouse from back in the late 1800s, was transitioned into municipal, registered in the municipal name in 1954. And then the group, the South Rawdon Community Hall Association, has been in operation since the early 80s, 1984. They were registered with joint stocks. They fell into default in around 2011. And most recently in 2020, there was a fire inspection done where the representative of the association advised the fire inspector that the building may not be reopened following COVID shutdowns. And there's only really been a couple hall functions since then. So today, we're bringing this report back to you to discuss if council or the committee wants to recommend to council to deem it surplus and what that process may look like. So just continuing on, we did an internal review of the facility from a Parks Rec culture perspective to look at it from Parks Rec culture needs. There was no needs identified. It doesn't align with council's master plans in that regard. So then we look at surplus, and if council were to want to deem it surplus, what that may look like. So just through that process, we would recommend to committee to recommend to council take a similar approach that you're taking right now with the Clarksville property. For that, you went out to your community, and the expression of interest for Clarksville is closing actually later this week. You've advertised that process on your website once you've deemed it surplus. Local community members could express interest in either rejuvenating the property or looking at it for community use. You could also accept applicants from anyone to consider selling it to them and what that may look like. And we would bring that expression of interest back to council at a later date should council move forward with that. We would also mail out letters to the Rawdon area, and we would use our GIS system like we've done with the Clarksville. For Clarksville, we did the whole Clarksville community. We would do similar approach for the Rawdon, so that would far reach the community to let them know that it would be deemed surplus and expression of interest was out there. We'd also put a for sale sign on the property as well, so any local residents driving by would understand council's intent. And then, through the process, we address emails, questions that come in. So for this process to move forward, we could cover that under your current operating budget. There are some mothball activities, depending how long it's closed back from the group, turned over to us. There may be some grounds maintenance and so forth required to do so. So that's kind of the primary recommendation, is really the expression of interest process. If council were to look at alternatives, committee could look at demolishing the building and keeping the land in your inventory. That would become an open space land, and it would sit there for longer term possible use. To do that, there's an approximate demolition budget of $15,000 to $25,000. I should also mention the parcel of land is 0.74 acre, so it's just under an acre. It's a very small building. I believe I showed the picture here just earlier, just to give the context. A nice red roof on it. There's a very small kitchen on the main level and an open space which would have been the school, and there's a lower level to it as well. So back to the alternatives. Alternative 1 would be to demolish the building and maintain the property. Alternative 2 would be to declare it surplus for municipal needs and dispose of it. And under your policy, under council's policy, you have various methods to dispose of. Today, we recommended the expression of interest, but you could go through a public auction process. You could list it with an agent. You could consider direct sale on the open market, or priority sale to not-for-profit organization. And just with that last one, through the expression of interest, we would hope that any not-for-profits or local residents that were interested in it would come forward through the expression of interest process. So I've laid out the options for councillor for committee today to consider. Really, you have in front of you the South Rawdon Community Hall to make a decision or make a recommendation on. Our recommendation is to recommend to council that you deem it a surplus to municipal needs, and that the corporate and residential committee recommends to council that you authorize an expression of interest to purchase the former South Rawdon Community Hall, and if the PID's listed there, 45126349, as an on an as-is, where-is basis, with submissions to be brought back to council for consideration and direction. So we would bring that back to you at a later date. And we would request as part of your motion that we would move that any costs incurred for multiple activities to be funded through year-end surplus or professional services reserves up to $8,000. That would be part of the recommendation. And just one other note, if council recalls in your January meeting, the current group has received some funding from the municipality to keep the lights and the heat on through council's direction at that point. So if council were to take the operations back, then those bills would be covered under this last part of the recommendation. That is the report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Adam. So I'm going to let the warden speak first, as this falls within her district.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to know, do these all require separate motions, or can they be all encompassed in one motion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the warden, they could all be in one.
Having heard that, I would move the recommended motions as shown on the screen.
Moved and seconded. We had a couple councillors on before the motion, so we'll go to them. Deputy Warden Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question through the staff. What is the present zoning for that property?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it is a commercial, let me just...
No, it's in the unplanned area.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Assessed commercial, but no zoning.
Please?
It's assessed commercial exempt through you, Mr. Chair, but there isn't current zoning.
Current zoning. Just to follow up, could that be rezoned for residential is my next question.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's there's no zoning in that area.
It's in the unplanned area, so it could be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next up, Councillor Rano.
Just a statement, Mr. Chair. I think it's, I find this report kind of saddening. Another hall goes down, and a hall that was once vibrant and held everything from suppers to birthday parties to community get-togethers is going down. This is not the only one. There's throughout the rural area, they're going down, and it's kind of a sad state of affairs. When we look at it, the population is not there to support it. I understand the evolution of society itself and vehicles that can travel to anywhere in a short time. I think it's a very sad state of affairs, and it's unfortunate that maybe the community spirit isn't there as much as it was before, but the population is not there. So I just want to throw that out there. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Rano. Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if we decide to sell the building, I would like to see it on open market. Like with real estate, with the market going on now, we should get the most we can get for it, and that will give more people outside the area to like see if they're interested in it, because most of the people who are paying high prices are from outside the area now. Thank you.
I think, Councillor, though, under our disposal of surplus property, the first thing is to start within the community, and if another group wants to take it over, and then it builds out from there. I believe, isn't it? You don't have to?
Yeah. So
My motion indicates that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So to clarify our committee's intent today, it is to go out to the community to ask for an expression of interest. However, through that process, the non-community groups can also submit an expression of interest. So through you, Mr. Chair, to address the comment from Councillor Musa, listing it would be a separate process council would take than what's currently in front of you today. If that was the desire, you would then have to do kind of a community expression of interest first, bring it back, and then decide to list it with an agent. There would be significant time, staff time and resources to do that process, but it is really committee's wish. But just for clarity, today the process would be an open expression of interest for community groups or local group of residents that may want to rejuvenate the space could come forward, or a private purchaser could come forward through that process.
Yeah. Is that everything? Oh, good. Warden Rolston, you're up next. I'm just trying to, there you go.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to comment. That is the process that I would prefer, because to echo Councillor Rhino's comments, I've been to suppers numerous times in this hall and other events that have been held there. The folks who worked for many years at the hall, as happens in many rural communities, got older. And while some younger people were there to do it, there just isn't enough community support anymore to keep it going. But this community worked hard and supported this hall over the year. And I would like to see the option out there if a group was formed to try and use it for something. And also for the purchase of the property, we've never gone and put a for sale sign and gone to a real estate agent and listed it and trying to get the best dollar. We want the best dollar we can get out of it, but for me that's balanced against community use and local folks who have grown up supporting that building and helping to put it in, whatever condition it's in now and maintain it there. So I support what is in the motion, which is our regular process. That does not preclude anyone from coming in and making an offer from anywhere on that building. But anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. And rest assured, as soon as it goes on our website, I'm sure every real estate agent will see it. All right, seeing nothing, no further discussion. Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed unanimously. Thank you, Adam, for your presentation. That brings us to the end of corporate and residential services. And I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn. Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Next up, Parks and Recreation Culture Committee with Chairperson Councillor Rhino. I don't think so, but I'll be nice.
You didn't do that. She wants to swallow.
There you go.
Yeah, I'd like to call this meeting of Parks, Recreation, and Culture to order. First order of business, approval of minutes of February 15th, 2022. What would be your wish?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary of mine, motion's carried. First order of business would be item 24, with major special events grant request, Maritime Cup Junior C Hockey Championships. And Ms. Tapper, you'll be taking the lead on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report brings forward a major special event funding request from the Maritime Hockey North Junior Championship Group that wishes to hold the Maritime Junior C Hockey Championships from April 27th to May 1st, May 1st, at the East Hants Sportsplex. The group is requesting $5,000 in major special event grant funding to help offset the cost of running this event. And we do have funds available in the Major Special Events Grant Reserve, and the current balance of that is actually $41,960. The purpose of the Special Events Grant Policy is really to provide a modest one-time financial support to a major special event that has positive economic impact to the community. And within the policy, requests from organizations that fit multiple criteria, including public benefit, financial need, and the opportunity to showcase our community within the policy, can then be awarded funding based on council discussion and approval. PRC staff did receive this request in March of 2022, actually mid-March, and they indicated that previous championships had been delayed because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and given public health restrictions were anticipated to be easing as of yesterday, the group was keen to hold the championships for the first time in over 2 years. They are to be hosted by the East Hants Rice and Construction Junior C Penguins, and they'll host teams from across Atlantic Canada, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and PEI. They will be competing at the East Hants Sportsplex. So throughout discussions with the group, they've made arrangements for teams to stay at hotels near the airport. They feel that this will benefit the local economy and also increase visitors to local shops, restaurants, and will provide an increased revenue for the East Hants Sportsplex itself through ice rentals and cafe sales. The policy outlines eligibility criteria, including public benefit, financial need, community showcase, economic development, community development, and tourism. And upon discussion, it was felt that a number of these criteria were met because of the timing and nature of an event. The groups made it clear that they want to have the event open to the public. They have indicated financial need when they provided a list of their expenses. And they also indicated that they typically would have fundraised for something like this, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic, they were unable to do so. And the event itself came about in a very short period of time, so that's why they put forward the request. The special event funding request does align with our strategic plan. It supports both strong community and economic prosperity. And the group has been very keen to actually partner with the municipality on this, and we have spoken about actually providing a We Live It brand sort of banner so that the community and visitors can see the municipality's support of this. Typically with the major special events grant policy, it's actually part of the annual budget process, but given the nature of when this one actually fit within the budget, we didn't allocate funds for this. So that's why we had suggested looking into the major special events grant reserve. And again, as indicated earlier, the current balance is $41,960. So it is, the recommendation is that Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee recommend to Council that the Maritime Hockey North Junior Championships be awarded $5,000 in support of the Maritime Junior C Hockey Championships through the Major Special Events Grant Reserve. Alternatives could be that Council awards an alternate amount, or alternatively, not award any funding at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Tapper, for the report. Before I open the floor, could you touch on what has been awarded in the past with this? Has this been a similar request that we've approved or disapproved in the past? Could you touch on that before I open the floor?
I can certainly try. So when I did look back, through you, Mr. Chair, when I did look back into some of the other fundings, it doesn't appear as though we've granted significant funding over the last 2 years, specifically, again, not to constantly say it, but COVID-19 really has impacted the ability to hold special events. So this would be something that we've awarded, to my understanding, for the first time in 2 years.
I guess where I'm looking pre-COVID. We understand.
Pre-COVID?
Pre-COVID.
Yeah. Admittedly, that was before my
Any,
time.
has there been any sporting?
I believe I heard the boxing.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the boxing event that was indicated by
Alright.
one of the councillors would have been considered a sporting event.
Very good. So you have the background information on that. First up would be Councillor Wayne Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This can only enhance East Hants out in the public eye. I would move the recommended motion.
Moved by Councillor Green, seconded by Councillor Garden Cole. I have two people on before the motion was made. I'll allow you some leeway. And Deputy Warden Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is an excellent way to showcase East Hants to our neighboring provinces, and I am fully in support of the motion. Thank you.
That all, Deputy Warden? Councillor Michael Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I as well am in full support of the motion. I think it'd be a great opportunity. It is the first major sporting event that's going to happen in the area since COVID. And I think it'd be a great opportunity as well for East Hants, especially our name and our picture being out there as a contributor and a supporter of this, to show the community that we're looking to get back into the normalcy of recreation, sport, and enjoyment within the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. At this time, I'd like to say a thing. I'm going to turn it over to the warden. I'm going to support this. I agree with the previous speakers. It will bring East Hants, give them more awareness on the sports circle. But what I did notice is the two hotels that the participants are going to be staying in, the two hotels at the airport. That really, I like to see the economic development group here maybe have further discussions on, possible hotel in this area. I know it's been talked about before, but I think, with the municipality now owning the sportsplex, we really, if we want to bring people in and we want to hold events such as this, we really need a place for them to stay, and I'd rather have them stay on East Hants soil. And I know the airport's close, but so I think that should be really an active part of going forward with the economic development. That's it. All right. So no further speakers are asking. So what is your wish? Question has been called. We'll go to the vote. And we only have 10, don't we? No. Oh, who? Ian, right. All right, and the vote is in. It's passed unanimously. So, next order of business would be playground strategy, and I have Debbie Uloth and Ms. Tapper. You are on board for that. And now to get back to there. Debbie, are you leading or?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll just give a little preamble before we get into a PowerPoint that sort of outlines details of the strategy. The playground strategy really was first identified in the Parks Open Space Master Plan in 2017, and the need for that review and replacement strategy for current playgrounds and future playgrounds within the municipality. Over a period of time, staff have created a really great working document that's really intended to provide council and municipal staff with a map or some guiding principles on how to achieve council goals regarding playground development. And within, I should sort of step back, and within the open space master plan, it was identified for playgrounds, but we've also, since that time frame, realized that splash pads could be included in that as well. Industry trends do change, so what initially started as predominantly playground now includes the both. We wanted to keep it a living document because we recognize that industry standards and trends do evolve over time and actually fairly quickly. So by keeping it a living document, we can actually go back and adjust and reevaluate and sort of fine tune it as things go along. Financial impact really would be through the adoption of the strategy and through municipal budgets and staff work plans. So each year as we assessed what projects we wanted to work on. We would then bring any financial implications forward for council discussion and approval. I won't touch on the recommendation yet because we'll go through the actual PowerPoint. It does align with the current strategic plan. Really, that informed and sustainable decision-making is crucial for us to be able to really decide where we're going to fill in those gaps and where we're going to put the recreational play equipment that we realize is so valuable to the community at large. I think we could probably switch over to the PowerPoint if you're comfortable, Tilly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm gonna go over what's included in the playground development strategy, and I've outlined pretty much everything here in the report, but the details are in the actual strategy if you want to go through that. So all play, particularly outdoor play, is important for a child's development. Play has been identified as a right of all children by the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. We want to ensure that children of East Hants have access to outdoor spaces where groups of children can come together through play and develop motor skills, take risks, push the limits, interact with each other, and learn social norms in an environment that is safe and close to home. Part of the strategy includes the identification of all playgrounds located in East Hants, the neighborhood demographics, asset management for East Hants owned playgrounds, and potential future playground development locations and accessibility. The playground development strategy will also consider splash pads and spray features and will identify potential future site locations for these amenities. The East Hants Playground Development Strategy provides the municipality with a roadmap on how to achieve the goal of developing new playgrounds and restoring older playgrounds, providing the opportunity for engaging and energetic play, and creating playgrounds that are inclusive to all children. New playground and splash pad development will comply with the guidelines set forth in the strategy. This strategy is meant to be a living document, and the guidelines in the strategy will be updated as best practices regarding playground and splash pad development evolve. So the playground development strategy recommends a 600-meter radius to determine the number of required playgrounds in the serviced areas. This measurement comes from the Parks, Open Space, and Active Transportation Master Plan for neighborhood parks. So we just took this same measurement for our playground development strategy. A 600-meter distance is equivalent to an approximate 9-meter walk at a relaxed pace. In the future, as population in the corridor becomes denser, a calculation based on density may need to be considered. So as our area becomes more and more denser, we may need more playgrounds that are based on density rather than an actual measurement. Providing a playground every 600 meters for the rural parts of East Hants is not feasible due to less population density. In other parts of the municipality, the approach to playground development should be to locate playgrounds in traditional settlements and in combination with tourism assets or as part of community-based assets. Tourism assets may not have a high density of children in the surrounding area, but the tourism destination acts as an attraction, bringing in families throughout Nova Scotia and beyond. By locating playgrounds at tourism destinations and on municipally owned community-based assets, both the community and the attraction benefit from the improvement in park amenities. So playground development standards continued. Playground road access. Playground development should only take place on roads that are publicly owned and maintained. Private road developments limit who has access to an area. The general public do not have permission to access private roads. Therefore, playgrounds should only be constructed where they can be accessed by a public road. Allowances may be made for unique circumstances where there's significant benefit for the municipality. Socioeconomic data. So statistical information is important in the determination of playground location and in considering the number of children and households in the surrounding area. And you'll see if you go through the staff reports that I have identified the demographics of all of the municipally owned playgrounds within the municipality. Playgrounds should be located where there's a high population of children and or households. Household income matters in ensuring that there are no economic disparities in the locating of recreational amenities. Researchers have identified strong links among socioeconomic disparities, physical inactivity, and poor health. So I have the first map here, map number 1, the South Corridor and Commercial Growth Management Area, and it has current and future playgrounds. So within our playground development strategy, we've not only identified municipally owned playgrounds, but we've also identified community playgrounds, and school playgrounds and potential future playground locations. So we have identified in the red the school playgrounds. We've identified in the green the community-based playgrounds, and the blue are the municipal playgrounds. The ones with the yellow buffer around them are the existing 600-meter, those are existing playgrounds, and that shows like 600-meter buffer area, radius buffer area. And the purple here, that shows potential for a future playground location. So right now we've identified one future potential playground location, and that's at the municipally owned park at the corner of Megan Lynn and John Murray Drive. And in that area, there's 209 households with a potential of 104 kids in that surrounding 600-meter radius area. As you can notice by the map, there are gaps within our South Corridor area. So this is a map of future development of the lands in Elmsdale area. It shows the approved development for the Armco development lands, and it shows the approved development for the Shaw Group. And then the FH lands here in Elmsdale are under a current planning application. So these show the little green areas here are the park areas where playgrounds would be located. Even if this application doesn't move forward through the planning application process, it would move forward as of right, and we would still be requesting open space contribution for playground development. So we put those two maps together. We see that we have a more comprehensive layout for all of our playgrounds in the South Corridor and Commercial Growth Management Area. Where we are missing a few playgrounds is we've identified the south end of Enfield, and there's always the potential between Highway 102 and Highway 2 for an area in here to be developed, and we may look at a playground development area there. Also, there's the potential future development of the lands, recreation lands. And then as the corridor continues to develop out, we've identified within our open space master plan as well, locations for neighborhood parks, which could include playgrounds on Bakerley Lane, Cali Lane, and then Mariah up here. So large lot subdivisions in the corridor area. So right now we really only have two that service the large lot subdivisions, and that's the Community Hall in 9 Mile River, and that's a community-owned playground again, and then the Royal Oaks Playground. Much of the land that we received for our open space development of these large lot subdivisions previously was not of good quality, and that and is not really suitable for playground development. However, in the future, as these subdivisions develop further and expand, or as new subdivisions are developed, we'll take into consideration the location of the development and look for land that's suitable for playground development. So Milford and Shubenacadie growth management areas, current and future playgrounds. So in Milford, we have the community playground for Milford Rec here. Also in the strategy, it indicates that if Wickwire Station Park, if that was to increase in visitations and the park became more developed, that could be a potential playground development site. And then in Shubenacadie, we have the elementary school that has a playground, and the Shubenacadie River Park, which will be taking over on March 31st as a future playground location. Mount Uniacke, current and future playgrounds. So there are 3 playgrounds currently in Mount Uniacke. We have a municipal playground at the South Uniacke Playground right here on the border with Halifax. Then there's the one at the elementary school, and then the one at the Mount Uniacke Memorial Park, which is municipally owned. For future development, we actually have a tentative plan of subdivision in for Moonlight Drive, I believe it is. Yep. Moonlight Drive, which would have a 1.5 hectare park open space contribution to the municipality, and that would be a potential playground development site. And then we have Cottage Country, the park, the open space there hasn't been provided to us yet, but when the road is turned over, that open space will be turned over to us as well. And Cottage Country will have a population, or could have a population of 401 households in that area. So there's a potential there for playground development. In rural parts of the municipality, so many of our playgrounds are located on school property. So we have the Rawdon District Elementary School, the Cobequid District Elementary School, and the Kennecook District Elementary School playgrounds. And then we have Findlay Park Playground, which is a community organization. And then we have 2 future locations identified. So both Walton and Maitland have lost their schools, so they no longer have those playgrounds. So we've identified the Dawson Dowell Park as a potential site for Maitland to locate a playground, and that would be in cooperation with the actual tourism asset, so it would enhance that asset. And then we have another future playground location at the Walton Fire Hall, and if that's determined not to be appropriate, we may have to acquire another piece of land in the Walton area for a playground, but that is one potential location. Playground equipment design. So children gravitate to a variety of play spaces, and it is recommended that East Hants diversify their playgrounds to represent many different forms and shapes. A good playground challenges and promotes children's growth by providing opportunities for children to engage in multiple different types of play. Working with nature and the surrounding landscape and creating a sense of place is integral to producing a playground that fits with the community, is memorable, and keeps kids wanting to visit over and over. A good sense of place speaks to East Hants culture and community spirit. A playground may represent a strong agriculture industry, shipbuilding history, or Mi'kmaq peoples. And for example, in Maitland, we could look at a piece of playground equipment that looks like a ship, which would represent a shipbuilding history. This is an example in the Beaverbrook subdivision over on the Halifax side. They installed a piece of playground equipment that looks like an airplane. So again, representative of the fact that they're adjacent to the airport. Community engagement and engagement of professional playground designer can provide alternative points of view on the design of playgrounds. It is recommended that new playgrounds are proposed, consideration be given to designing a playground that is unique and speaks to the culture of East Hants. Playground development accessibility. All East Hants children have the right to play. To support that right to play, East Hants is committed to creating accessible playgrounds and play opportunities for children with disabilities. Creating accessible playgrounds will allow all children to play, socialize, and interact. Playgrounds provide a critical thread through our communities. These play spaces are often neighborhood gathering places, bringing children, parents, and neighbors together. Accessible East Hants has identified the following actions as part of Council's accessibility plan, and that's to continue to build accessible playgrounds and walkways and construction of a fully accessible playground in the municipality within the next 10 years. And just to note that although it may not be fully accessible, the playground proposed for the Shubenacadie River part would have accessible components within that development. A guide for creating accessible play spaces from the Rick Hansen Foundation has been used as a supporting document for East Hants playground development strategies. So when you look at the details of the accessibility section, it has some of the details from the Rick Hansen Foundation document. Splash pads and spray features. Splash pads and spray features can offer affordable water play opportunities. As with playgrounds, they offer unstructured and spontaneous play and are an ideal way to activate public spaces. They offer opportunities to cool off on warm days and during extreme heat events. Splash pads are designed to encourage children and youth and often have self-activated features. Spray features are designed to engage all age groups. Both types of water features offer opportunities to cool down and have fun. East Hants maintains one splash pad located in the community of Elmsdale, with a second splash pad located in North Knoll at Findlay Park and operated by the Hants North Recreation and Development Association. Deciding how to determine appropriate locations for splash pads and spray features throughout East Hants is difficult. The nature of the municipality means that there are 3 distinct regions: the corridor, Uniacke and Rawdon region, and the shore and central region. Only the corridor has municipal water services, and water capacity should be considered prior to the development of any new splash pads or spray features. Due to the regional nature of East Hants, the municipality should aim for a minimum of 1 splash pad per each region. Additionally, the corridor region, due to its population size, should consider additional splash pads or spray features to accommodate the increased population and density. Spray features may be incorporated into new development where possible. And so these are just maps showing the location of the current splash pads. And the strategy recommends that the addition of splash pads or spray features be added to the following communities. So Mount Uniacke, opportunity for splash pad to be located at the Mount Uniacke Memorial Community Playground or on the Uniacke and Fire District Department lands. Or additional locations may be considered as determined by future needs, by a future Mount Uniacke recreational needs study. So we know that study is going to be undertaken, and that may have come up with additional locations for splash pad. So those will be taken into consideration. Enfield, spray feature or splash pad combined with a new park and playground. Elmsdale, existing splash pad, opportunity for spray feature as part of park design for FH Development's land. Lance, spray feature planned for New Armco Inc. Capital Development as part of the Hardscape Plaza as part of that development. And again, Shubenacadie, opportunity for a splash pad at the Shubenacadie River Park lands. Municipal playground asset management. Part of the approach in developing a strong network of municipally owned playgrounds is to ensure an asset management plan has been created for existing infrastructure. Playground inventory is maintained by the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department. The asset data in the strategy has been compiled over the summer of 2021. And so our staff went out and they'll go again this spring and do another look at the equipment and inspection. It is important to note that the park asset inventory represents a snapshot in time and that park development, park upgrades, and data refinement efforts will influence playground inventory over time. A rating system has been developed based on Parks, Recreation, and Culture staff knowledge of the park assets at each municipally owned park has been evaluated as the results are included in the study. And if you look at the study, each of our 7 municipally owned parks has a chart identified, and the information is broken out on that chart if anybody's interested. So financial considerations. The majority of playground equipment and park amenities are in either good or very good condition. As the asset management plan develops, 2 decisions need to be made. What is the desired condition level, and how fast would East Hants like to reach the desired condition level, expenditure level? Determining the minimum condition equipment should be determining the minimum condition equipment should be in and how fast the desired condition is reached will help determine the amount of funding required to be budgeted for on a go-forward basis. East Hants has been in the replacement and building phase of playgrounds over the last number of years. Funding for the development of playgrounds has been coming from the following sources: capital reserves, open space contributions or open space reserves, gas tax fund, known as the Canadian Community Build Fund, and grants. As the number of municipally owned playgrounds increase, a more predictable method of playground funding may have to be considered. Final recommendations. Playground design has a direct impact on the quality of East Hants children's experiences and the extent to which the playground will be used. This makes it important to ensure municipal playgrounds are well planned and designed and maintained. The playground development strategy provides a framework on how to achieve desirable playgrounds that give all East Hants children a place to play. And I can give it over to you for the final recommendation.
Thanks, Debbie. So the recommendation is that Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee recommend to Council the adoption of the East Hants Playground Development Strategy dated December 2021. The alternative to that really is to not recommend to Council the adoption of the playground strategy and provide further input on development standards and final recommendations for the strategy. And then the recommended motions on the screen.
Thank you for that report. I will now open the floor, and Councillor Perry, I'd remove you, but you were on first there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Thank you for the very detailed report. but I did notice one detail. In Mount Uniacke, there was a large portion of the community that seems like it was cut off. The entire Coxcomb, Pickett Lake, Pinecrest region, which has quite a few residents and quite a few children, didn't seem to appear in this report.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it actually is covered in the written part of the report. I meant to bring it up here, is that although there's no locations identified as a future playground spot immediately, what we've identified in the report are a variety of things. Is that we understand that Lakelands will develop in the future. And as that community develops, we want to identify a spot for a park in Lakelands because it's currently missing one. So we've outline that in the actual report that's in there. And the other one is that in Mount Uniacke, there is in the Parks, Open Space and Active Transportation Master Plan a requirement for a district park in Mount Uniacke to be located on a lake. And as part of that district report, it also outlines in the report that we would like to locate a playground on that lake. So it's just the fact right now that we don't have an identified piece of land in Lakelands to show on the map. But we understand that as that community develops and new developments occur, that we need to determine a location that would suit the community.
Yeah, I know we had the conversations before. That's why I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I thought we talked about this.
No.
I know it was there. And of course, the recreation study from Mount Uniacke is going to feed into this too and give more information.
That's correct.
So I just want to say thank you. Everything else in the report is very well laid out. Thank you.
Is that all, Councillor? Next up, Warden Roles.
Thank you. I agree with them and support much of this presentation, but unfortunately not all of it. I've expressed my concerns before, and in most cases I didn't see the phrasing repeated, but it's here. And it says that the nature of the municipality means that there are 3 distinct regions: the corridor, Mount Uniacke and Rawdon, and Shore and Central. And with all due respect to my friends from Mount Uniacke, that doesn't reflect the way things are. The folks that live in South Rawdon and out the South Rawdon Road definitely go Mount Uniacke way and would be included as part of a regional look at that area. But once you come up into Center Rawdon, Upper Rawdon, Rawdon Gold Mines, they're not part of a Mount Uniacke region in any way, shape, nor form. They go more towards the Kennecott Central Shore area. And any descriptive language that seems to suggest otherwise is, in my opinion, incorrect and unacceptable to me.
Good.
That work?
All right, Debbie, I'm going to let you kind of direct that.
Through Mr. Chair, we use those regions because we've used them in the past. For the gas tax funding, we use those 3 regions. And also, since the late 90s, we've used those regions for the socioeconomic study. So when we look at data for the socioeconomic study, we can go back to the 90s for each of for those regions and look at the growth. So that's why we use those 3 regions. It wasn't to penalize anyone. And we know that people travel out of their area to go to parks. I mean, I take my kids to parks in Bedford or Sackville. And
All right,
Doesn't
before I turn this back to the warden, I've been here for almost 25 years, and it's never, let's get these areas right. It's never been, Rawdon has always been connected, and it's been enhanced north area, never with Mount Uniacke. So there's been 3 distinct regions, I'll agree with you. Corridor, for lack of a better word, they call it the corridor, the growth management area, whatever you want to say. Then there's been the enhanced north, and there's been a Mount Uniacke. So I'm going to respectfully disagree, and now I'm going to turn this back to the warden.
Thank you. I would have no problem with language around the region that said the Mount Uniacke South Rawdon region, because in my mind, that would be correct. This is not. And if I've protested this in different ways many times over the years when this language has been used. And the fact that we've used it in the past doesn't make it correct. And I don't think it's correct. And when people read these reports, and that's not what they're hearing. So for me to support this has to be fixed. It would have to read Mount Uniacke and South Rawdon region, And the rest of Rawdon would have to be added to the Central Shore region somehow. And otherwise, it just doesn't work because the folks from Mount Uniac don't come to Rawdon for recreation or anything like that. If there's something going on South Rawdon, probably some of them do. The same as if anything that's taking place in Mount Uniac, folks that live, bordering Mount Uniac out the South Rawdon Road, a lot of them, some of them go to the Uniac Elementary School and by all means, that's, they should be thought of as part of that region. But I guess for me, it's kind of gotten to a line in the sand. I've tried to make this point so many times, and I guess I didn't do a very good job of it. But, that's my holdup. And while that language is in there, I don't care how good the rest of the report is. It won't have my support because I think we need to get the regions correct, and I think we need to get them correct in a way that any member of the public reading a report or a reference to this would understand that that's what it meant. And it's not currently so. Now, that's on that particular one. I thought that all that language had been removed, and it hadn't. And I guess I have another question, but I'll kind of leave it and see if that's something that can be adjusted in this report.
Do you want to leave your further question till later?
I'd like to hear the answer from staff on this one.
Ms. Tapper, I think you might want to take a try at this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to the warden. As this is sort of a guiding document and meant to be a living document, that's part of the discussion today, so that is easily something we can change. That's no issue whatsoever.
And I would like to have that changed. If this is a deep background ingrained thing, then change it going forward. Do what we have to do to make it reflect what is. My next question, this is a living document, and for a number of years there have been kicked around the possibility of a splash pad in the Rawdon area. It comes up because I think it's even in the capital plan or the capital budget down the road somewhere. This doesn't allow for that. But as this is a living document, if an opportunity were to arise, I wouldn't want to have to say to folks, well, no, even though you have land and you have a group that would do it and everything, you can't do it because it's not in the document.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is the beauty of the living document. If community at large came forward or if a parcel became available and it came to council for discussion, we could easily go to the document and say, oh yeah, it's a gap or the catchment area or something, it fits all of this. So we could absolutely then build it into the document. The locations we have for future splash pads and playgrounds are suggested from the information we have currently, but it's not to say that we can't have other locations come up in the future. So really, it's not meant to pigeonhole us to only these locations. Absolutely, other areas can be considered, and then it would be evaluated if it's appropriate, depending on, water source, volume, all of that kind of thing. Yep.
My final question is, where do we get our demographic information? Because I'm going around in my head 600 meters from the Rawdon District Elementary School, and I cannot count 125 homes within 600 meters of that school.
Through Madam Chair.
I've gone house by house as far as I think it would go.
We use, it's called Business Analytics is what we do use, and it's a software that's applied to our GIS system. And what it does is it takes points from our StatsCan data, and that circle may include points that draws in people from outside of the circle. It's just that we can't get it exact using that system, so we have to.
I'm going to submit to you that that's a fairly inaccurate number. I won't challenge you on the 40 kids. I suspect that's high as well. There's a lot, the Hill Farm is in there, the Miles Farm is in there. There's a lot of unpopulated area within that 600 meters where there aren't homes and there aren't children. And so I was just, when I looked at that, I thought, where are all these households? So Anyway, just so that there's an understanding that I don't really believe there are 125 households within 600 meters of the Rawdon District Elementary School. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'd just like to reiterate too, the Maitland part of my district does not have, there's not hardly a child in that area. So I just want to make you aware of those things.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and we realized for Walton and Maitland, it doesn't even provide us with numbers because the amount of children are low, so we just put not applicable in a study.
All right, thank you. Well, you still have the floor, I guess. I didn't switch it.
Just, I guess I'm wondering what the purpose of putting this demographic information in there if we know it's probably not accurate.
Through you, Mr. Chair, socioeconomic data is actually important in determining that we don't put disparities in with playground development. So if we know, it's probably more relevant to the corridor area where you'll get more accurate data because the populations are higher. Because you don't want to put all your playgrounds in high-income areas or where there's no kids at. You want to be able to at least see that you're putting your playgrounds in throughout the municipality so that they're evenly distributed. So even if you have a transient population, the transient population is going to have kids, but they may not advocate on behalf of themselves because they don't see themselves living there for beyond a 5-year period. So we want to make sure that we see accurate representation. And as I said, for areas outside of the corridor, yes, I agree the data isn't going to be as accurate because it pulls from the way that the GIS system works, it pulls from data even outside of that circle, but within the corridor, because the density is higher in the corridor, we can get more accurate readings on the population data.
I guess I would submit that I understand that and that works well for the corridor, but knowing that it doesn't work for the rural area, I kind of question the validity of including information there that we know is not accurate and doesn't present a true picture when it comes to that demographic. That could be misleading to folks too. And personally, I would rather it say not available than to reflect something that's probably at least double what it actually is. So,
or a caveat saying in your report that these numbers reflect the corridor area.
And through Mr. Chair, there is a caveat within all the maps where the data is represented, saying that is geo data and that there is a margin of error with that.
Well, due respect, that's not good enough for me, because anybody just looking at a report or pulling that map out of this report is going to think that that's how many households are there and how many. And I just think that for our purposes internally, those estimates may be fine, but when you're putting something out there, I just think it should be, if it's not somewhat accurate, I don't think we should be putting massive numbers on there. And I think we know, when we know the numbers aren't accurate, then why put them there? I mean, in some cases, it says not available because, and I don't see any difference in it not being available for Knoll or for, Maitland or than for Walton, because, there are community centers in all of those areas, and I guess perhaps the school might just be a little closer to a community center in Rawdon. But I just think it's important that anything we're basing recommendations on that may be looked at by the public, that if we don't have accurate numbers, we shouldn't put numbers there at all. Those are just my comments. Thank you.
Warden?
Yeah.
Thank you, Warden. Next up would be Councillor Eli Mosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I 100% agree with the warden about the South Rawdon, like probably Hillsvale and stuff they associate with Mount Uniac, but the rest of Rawdon they go a separate way. And to add one more thing about the Memorial Park in Mount Uniac, that's provincial land. And now we barely have parking for the playground, so if we don't acquire, lease more land from the province. We're not gonna be able to put anything over there, I don't think. So I don't want another skate park in Mount Uniac, like with the parking and stuff. So it's on a highway, it's busy highway. So I think we should look at different location or get more land from the province. That's the first thing. And about this flush pad, now that it's in our strategy, so how long is it gonna take to get one in Mount Uniac now?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think what's unique about Mount Uniac and that will help with some of those questions is that we are going to be doing the Mount Uniac recreation strategy. So that will really look at not just what the community is looking for, et cetera, but it would look into things like, is this a suitable location for a splash pad or whatever? Is there suitable parking, et cetera? So I feel like a lot of the information that you're looking for there will be gleaned from that recreation strategy. In all honesty, I don't know if I can get a definitive timeline on the splash pad piece because, again, specifically with splash pads, when you start to look into that, you'd have to look at what is the appropriate location, what is the design that you want. Do you want a recirculating water feature, or are you going to just use continuous flow? Those are all considerations, and they have budget considerations associated with that. We have sort of a plan in mind at this time for the next 2 to 3 years in terms of playgrounds. But again, I feel like the Mount Uniac pieces specifically will really come from that strategy. And with that, the intent would be also to look at timeframes associated with that strategy. So I feel like I don't have a definitive answer now, but we should have that based on the motion for that strategy from Councillor Perry and yourself.
Yeah, but there's a lot of pressure on us because the people of Mount Uniac, they want splash pad yesterday. Last year, not now or not in the 3 years. And we have the money, we have the land, we have everything, so all we need is something to be done as soon as we can, so we can enjoy our lives too. And one more thing about you said you don't want anything on private roads. We have a lot of open space on private road in Mount Uniac. We have the Partridge Lane, we have the Nsfm Drive, we have everything, so that's gonna come up with a strategy too, right? If they're gonna be surplus or not.
Respectively, not interrupting you, but would not that be part of the Mount Uniac strategy, or would be things like putting things on the private road and so on and so forth? Would that come up under discussion there? And I don't want to take anything away from it, I just want to
Absolutely.
clarify.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would be. So the idea with the strategy, when it came forward in the motion is, PRC staff have been trying to figure out what is the scope of work going to look like. Prior to that scope of work going out, we would then engage both you as councillors because you know your area. So, we may have that we want to look at, and I'm not going to get it in its entirety, we want to look at recreation spaces, what this timeline would look like, what's appropriate for different use, et cetera, et cetera. We'll then bring that to you, and if there's any gaps in that scope of work that we've missed, then hopefully we would catch it with yourselves. But yes, we would absolutely look at those pieces when we get into the strategy. Yeah.
Does that help you out, Mount Uniac councillors?
Yeah, thank you. That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna mention too that since staff they don't know much about like I know you know something about Mount Uniac, but you don't know everything about Mount Uniac. I think the councillor, like even in a shore area or like in Rawdon, the councillor know what they want in this area. I think they should have a big say about it too. Thank you.
And through you, Mr. Chair, just to sort of finish that piece, not necessarily knowing what that would look like at this time, there's also that community engagement aspect and what's that going to look like. So it's not just staff makes recommendations and decisions. It's not just councillors. There is also a community engagement piece to that as well. So it's a unified approach. So you're actually capturing the point of view of everyone involved, and the community at large in those areas is a huge part of that. You're correct. I'm not intimately aware of the needs and the different pieces to Mount Uniac. We're really fortunate. We have a staff member coming in on a term that has quite a bit of background knowledge, which is great, but there's still the community piece to that as well. And we would expect that the community would also contribute information as well on that.
Thank you.
Ms. Tapper, just to help the Mount Uniac councillors out, when would they expect a strategy like this to start, or has it started? And so that would give them a time frame around in which to expect questions like that. That may help the councillors out.
Of course, through you, Mr. Chair. It's something that the budget is allocated in 2022-23, and staff have been working, and myself probably more than some others, on figuring out what that scope of work would be like. What is unique about the Mount Uniacke Recreation Strategy is it's very specific. So other strategies that we've reviewed, that we've tried to sort of see if they would fit with what we're looking for, are a bit more broad spectrum. So it would be sort of like an East Hants kind of strategy. So we've been trying to fine tune that, but my thoughts would be that by realistically, I would say late May, early June is when I would hope to have that scope of work determined and have conversations with both of you prior to that. We wouldn't be going out to the community at that point. That would be specifically the group that was actually overseeing the strategy. We'll probably put out an RFP for that and get a group that will give us a proposal on what that would look like. So I think first quarter will be that sort of planning stages. It's been sort of in the back of our minds. We knew it was coming, but we just have been sort of fine-tuning it and trying to figure some things out. But I would say late May, early June, we'll have some scope of work figured out for that, in which case we'll engage yourself.
Okay, so we have a time frame on start update. Is that fair with the Mount Uniacke councillors?
Can I ask one more question, please?
Yeah, you still have the floor before I turn it over.
Yeah, so since that splash pad is in our strategy now, so I don't see why we should be waiting for Mount Uniacke like study, since we're gonna have one anyway. So why don't we start right now, engage the community, find a place for it, and it's gonna happen with the strategy or without. If they come up and say, no, you don't need splash pad, no, we need one. And it's in our plan and it's so why don't we take the shortcut and start doing something about it so people can enjoy it? We have lots of money sitting around, we're not doing anything with it. So I think it's something that we want, it's something that we can have, and I don't see the wait. I don't like to wait more for that, so.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can appreciate the want and the need for that. I just think that if we're going to have this very specific, wonderful recreation strategy come forward that really identifies all of the different needs for Mount Uniacke, I think it would be really prudent to sort of hold off just on the short term and make sure they align. It would be unfortunate if we proceeded in one manner, but then the recreation strategy identified something that hasn't been identified in our playground strategy. I think when the playground strategy was developed, we hadn't yet had the motion that brought forward the request for a Mount Uniacke specific recreation strategy. And again, I just wouldn't want the two things not to line up. We've identified sort of a potential location or potential locations for splash pads in Mount Uniacke, but it's not necessarily set in stone. So I just feel like the long-term gain of waiting for that specific recreation strategy really would benefit the community at large and be just a bit of a safer, moderated approach.
So you've heard staff's approach, so they are going to look at this, they want to look at this as a whole. So I hope you can accept that. Is this to this exactly? Because you're in line. All right, I'm gonna jump over and I'm gonna go to the CAO, who might add something to this. I'm trying here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. Just through you to Councillor Musa, there is no splash pad in our capital planning at this point. So not only does it need to be in a strategy, which it is in this playground strategy, your community strategy is next up, but we do not have a capital project to go out and build a splash pad this year. We certainly have lots of other competing priorities for that kind of project. I mean, it is a massive project to do, to implement a splash pad and build it and whatnot in 1 year. That would not happen in 2022, 2023 without some serious reconfiguration of our current capital budget. So I think the idea to wait until you have your community strategy and then take a wholesome approach to developing your recreation for Mount Uniacke as a whole, no doubt that a splash pad's going to make it to the top of the list based on what I'm hearing from you, but it's certainly not in our current capital planning at all, and we wouldn't have the resources to put that in there without council doing some serious reconfiguration of your workload.
Great. Councillor Green.
Mr. Chair, the playground in Walton is much the same as Maitland. There's not a large population of children there, but there are a few. But it's also a great amenity to draw to. If you read anything in the real estate, it's like minutes to here, playground in the center of the location. Like, people look for that stuff. The rural area is, for lack of a better word, dying. And it is, if we can bring some younger blood in, people with kids who may want to locate there for a quieter way of life, I think it's a wise investment. I would move the recommended motion with the addition of the changes in language to the regions.
Moved and seconded. Now, Councillor Perry, you were on and took yourself off. Do you wish to remain? I'll give you a little bit of leeway there.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. The CAO brought up one of the points I was going to do, is that we didn't have that in our projects and plans for this fiscal year. And I totally appreciate where Councillor Moose is coming from, and I understand the residents, they are asking for it. But I think it is prudent to get it right, because the last time in my area, before I was on council, before Councillor Moose was on council, things were pushed and rushed. We ended up with a lovely skate park that is an absolute hazard due to the fact there was no parking considered on a blind corner on a main artery in a community. And that is a huge safety concern that we deal with every day. And this council and staff has spent hours and hours and hours trying to find a remedy for that, and we're still working on it now. So I think getting it right is the most important thing, rather than getting it quick. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Thank you, Warden. Thank you, Councillor Perry. And I'll turn it to the Warden, and it has to be toward the motion.
I would like to move an amendment to the motion that a definitive prominent comment be added to the report around the demographics shown for the rural area, clearly stating that these are subjective estimates only, or something to that effect, so that anyone reading this would understand that. Thank you.
Okay, you've heard the amendment.
I'll second.
The amendment has been seconded. Now, anyone wishing to speak to the amendment? Seeing none, to go to the vote on the amendment. And the amendment has passed unanimously. All right, now to the motion as amended.
Question on the motion, and the amended motion.
Question has been called. How do we get back to this there? Okay, it's back. It's all back. Now, the motion is amended. Where did you do?
Oh, I haven't voted yet, sorry.
No, you lost my,
Okay, down to results here. I messed up his screen. He can't see the results, and I can't find it.
so we'll have to go to the vote again, please.
No, she has them on her
Can you set
screen.
that up?
There's just one there, unanimous.
Is you, okay. The motion as amended has passed unanimously. Next item of business will be now diversity and inclusion strategy. Is that a go, Ms. Deborah?
Yeah.
Well, that will be Mr. Preston and Ms. Giles on that.
Mr. Chair, we have 3 minutes to lunch.
Okay. What is the wish of council? How long do you think that, do you have an estimated time, Ms. Deborah, on this?
I think. Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I think the diversity and inclusion strategy is fairly straightforward. I feel like if we could get through that and maybe after lunch come back for the DRF and volunteer nominations, that we could get through the diversity and inclusion.
In 3 minutes, do you think you can get through this?
Not in 3 minutes. No,
So really respectively, I don't think that we should start. Thank you, Councillor Green, for bringing up the time. I was having so much fun, I didn't take notice to it. So is it the wish of Executive Committee to bring this toward the end of the day and come back to Recreation and Culture at that time? Is that the wish of the committee?
Agreed.
Hearing nothing, is that gonna put a cramp in your style? Ms. Tabor?
I don't believe so. No, Mr. Chair.
That's good to hear. So now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to return at 1:30 to Planning and Advisory, and that Parks, Recreation, and Culture will be at the end, placed at the end of the day.
I so move.
Moved by Councillor Green. Seconded by Deputy Warden Mitchell. All those in favor? Contrary of mind? We go to lunch.
Saving them.